Hi, welcome to Awakenings Within. I'm so glad that you all joined us this evening. It's Thursday evening, and we're glad you're here. January the 7th, 2021. How's it going out there? I know, I'm doing like a whole intro tonight, aren't I?
2021.
2021. Hi, Larry. Hi, Nora. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for joining us. I saw the funniest meme today. The one that says, okay, please cancel my trial subscription to 2021. I want my money back. My 7-day trial. That was the funniest meme I've seen today.
That is funny.
Yes, I agree. How about you? You agree?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yay. Larry got his diamond back. Larry got his diamond back.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never had a diamond. I'll be honest. I mean, I'm a host and I don't have a diamond for the show. So just saying.
Well,
so how are you,
maybe
Bob?
some of our followers will send us diamonds.
Oh, wouldn't
literally, I want a real diamond.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
come on, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to talk about don't diamonds come from Africa?
Yeah. Well, they come from a number of places, but yeah.
South Africa
and Zimbabwe are particularly loaded with minerals.
With minerals that they make into diamonds.
No, I'm just saying minerals in general. Like if Congo is, which is north of Zimbabwe, is just loaded with copper. So there's massive copper mines.
Oh, wow.
I think 11 of the 17 rare minerals that everybody's hunting that can be found in Zimbabwe, but they have massive gold and diamond resources, but gold in particular. In fact, interestingly, I have no one actually knows for sure, but there's been speculation that Solomon's gold mines were in Zimbabwe because of the fact that it's got such rich gold deposits.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I was in South Africa early part of last year, having a covert meeting with someone, and he pulled out some photographs of some gold that was found, what's called antiluvial gold. So on the Mozambique, on the the far eastern side of Zimbabwe, there's a mountain range with Mozambique, right? And there was a hurricane that came through there, and there was massive washouts. Well, the military went in there and caroned everything off, right? And people thought it was a safety issue. What he showed me was gold nuggets that look like potatoes.
Oh.
And what I mean by antiluvial means it's you're not digging for them; they're right on top. Well, this one looked like potato because it had water had washed it and made it smooth, but it was whole. I mean, it was just like the size of a potato in the guy's hand.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, so there's lots of gold in Zimbabwe.
Wow. Do people just randomly go searching for it or digging for it, mining for it? Mm-hmm.
It recently has become almost just like the Wild Wild West.
Oh.
Or the gold rush, of 1849, out in California, because there's gangs and people getting killed and
oh my goodness,
fights over claims, and I mean it's
wow,
yeah,
huh,
it's a bad situation. So it's a little bit. You were talking about the movies. I think what you're referring to was Leonardo DiCaprio's movie about blood diamonds.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a very famous movie a few years ago. Blood diamonds. People. They call, or another word for them is conflict diamonds.
Okay.
Because of the fact that they're mined by militias. Militias will go in there and send people in there. I mean, all in Zimbabwe, people are digging by hand, right? And they don't have any of the safety structures in place, and so. Just last month, 26 people were killed because they were digging in the rains and it collapsed on top of them. So that happens all the time. But the poor are so desperate.
Wow.
for any sort of income that they'll do dangerous things.
Yikes.
That's where the blood diamonds, conflict diamonds, all that
Right.
terminology comes from.
Okay. See, I learned something. I knew
Yeah,
I'd learned
it's
something
crazy.
new.
I'm talking about militias, like guys in Jeeps with, with Kalashnikovs,
Waiting
or you
to
see the
because
pickup
they don't want
trucks.
anybody else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you see
They
in
don't
the
want
pickup
buddies
trucks.
stealing.
People
Huh.
always see that in the movies, and no, that's exactly what it looks like.
Wow. So it's almost like what the cartel around Mexico with their stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
So
that. And of course, then you
tonight,
have the
I mean, this is
president himself and his family's into. So in order to make money, nobody in Zimbabwe wants the gold. So
right.
Nobody
in Zimbabwe wants the gold.
What?
Nobody in Zimbabwe wants the gold.
No, they want the money.
Oh, okay.
They want the cash, and so the people that'll buy it are in Dubai. So
Wow.
Dubai's become a mecca for diamond and gold smuggling, because the Arabs have oil wealth, lots of cash from oil, and they want their asset. The oil in the Middle East is I mean, not in our lifetime, but in the next 50 years is going to run out. And so that's why Dubai and all these countries are taking their oil money, that they've been making for decades, and turning it into building infrastructure and all these different things. That's why you're seeing the massive buildup there, because they've got to create some other way of doing things. And gold smuggling is a big one.
Wow. Nora said, yeah, sure. Makes sense. Yeah. So okay. So this is a good segue into what we want to talk about tonight, because I know that you have a company and a nonprofit in Zimbabwe. So just give us some background, about the poverty level and what does the country's infrastructure, what exactly is going on there.
Way up.
Back way up.
Right.
Yes, please
create some context for people as to
how you started and all of that.
Yeah. And it's a bit of a journey, but and so you'll just have to jump in if I get too long-winded.
I will.
You want to ask some questions, but
I know you by now, Bob. I know you by now. It's good.
Yeah. So by and large, the way this story starts is that I had a very profound spiritual experience in June of 1975, which turned my heart towards seeking God and wanting to understand more about his ways. And over the next 7 years, I studied and read and researched and did as much as I could to try to understand Jesus, the Gospels, and all that. Well, one of the things that I found so interesting about Jesus' teachings was how much of a peacemaker he was, how much of a relational person he was. And I started asking the question, looking at his teachings, is there anywhere in the world where people actually believe this stuff? Like they actually believe in forgiveness. They actually believe in reconciliation, that, and I was particularly fascinated by situations where there had been conflict. In other words, okay, I'm reading all these wonderful words in the Bible.
Right.
The stuff that Jesus said really rings true in my soul, but does it actually work? Like, is there anywhere where this actually works? Right. So that question had been ruminating in my mind for years. And then in the latter part of 82, a very close friend of mine and I started a church in Kansas City, and we'd get visitors from time to time. And in 1984, we had two itinerant Jewish guys come through Kansas City who wanted to meet with us because our church was growing so rapidly, and they were curious as to what was going on there. In the course of our conversation, I was particularly intrigued by what they would say, having been a whole people group that had gone through something as terrible as the Holocaust, where there was such death and destruction. And I started asking them this question. Is there anywhere in the world where people, via the teachings of Jesus, have actually learned how to forgive one another, reconcile, and live together? Like they actually did it practically, not on a whiteboard or in some classroom, sterile classroom environment, but in an actual living situation. Well, their eyes both lit up, and they said, "You're not going to believe this, but we just got back from visiting Zimbabwe." Well, I was like, Zimbabwe? I never even heard of a place called Zimbabwe.
Oh.
So I was intrigued, and they basically told me this story
Mm-hmm.
about how there'd been a civil war there.
Okay.
That was pretty much broken down on racial side, but that civil war that had gone on in the 70s, late 60s, all through the 70s. And that after the war, there were some white Rhodesians. That was what Zimbabwe was called before independence in 1980. There were some white Rhodesians who had been reading the Gospels just like I had and had come to the same conclusions that I had, and were asking all the same questions. And what they had done was they were living in the urban area in the big southern city of Bulawayo, and they sold everything they had and went out and bought farmland next to what they call the tribal trust lands, which would be similar to an Indian reservation here.
Okay.
So they couldn't own land on the res, but they could own the land adjacent to it.
Okay.
So that's what they did. Now, this was in 1982. So this was only 2 years after this armed conflict had happened. And these guys had actually been a part of the killing. Like they had been a part of the Rhodesian army. So it was quite interesting. And for me, as I'm listening to the story, and of course, my immediate response when they were done telling me the whole thing was, when can we go?
Oh, wow.
So I ended up getting on an airplane.
And how old were you?
March of 84.
So how old were you?
I don't know, 84. I was born in 57. So I was 20. What was I? 27.
Right.
Right. I was 27.
Already married with kids and the whole deal. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 2 really young kids.
Okay.
So anyways, this is my first international trip. And if you really want to read the whole story, I have a book called Saving Zimbabwe, Life, Death, and Hope in Africa, which you can get on Amazon, the e-version. If you want a hard copy, you can call me or whatever. And I've got some here, but I don't sell the hard copies on Amazon anymore.
Okay.
Anyway, so I go there, right? But it's a 6-week long trip. So we go to India first. I'm there visiting, people there for potential. I'm doing research for potential mission opportunities.
Right.
We go to Kenya. Nigeria next, then Kenya, come through South Africa and end up in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And after seeing 5 weeks of traditional church missions work, basically I call it, solution in a box, which is basically build a building and stuff it with a bunch of orphan kids. That was kind of the tip. Everything I saw was that same model, right? Take these poor kids that are orphans, give them bed, food, and educate them. So I get to Zimbabwe and I see something completely different. I was so blown away because we drove up onto this farm, and here were black and white people, former enemies. I mean, people who were killing each other 2 years earlier.
Right.
Who were laughing.
What were the names?
What?
Yeah. What were the names of were they different tribes or?
Well, Zimbabwe is divided predominantly between 2 groups of people, the Shona who live in the north and the Matabele who live in the south. And this was in the south in Matabele land. Okay. So anyways, so I get to this place, which was called the Community of Reconciliation. That's what they had given the name to.
Wow.
And I was so stunned. Literally, I'd never seen anything like this. I had never even read about anything like this. This was such an amazing thing to witness as you saw these former enemies living. Well, at that point, they were living next to each other. So
Right.
the villagers would come up to work on the farm and everything, but they still live separately. Well,
Mhm.
between 84 and 87, things developed rapidly. They started living together. They shared rooms together. I mean, it literally became a giant family,
Oh, wow.
of probably 50 or 60 people.
Mhm.
And we poured lots and lots of money into it. Built water weirs, which are like dams to catch water.
Okay.
And we had this massive agricultural thing. It was ironically in the middle of of a a dry season, like 7-year drought.
Oh, wow.
And this place though looked like the Garden of Eden because we had basically drilled wells and collected water whenever it rained. So it was an amazing situation.
Oh, wow.
It was for me, and I can say this now, even years later, the single most authentic expression of Christianity that I think I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
Meaning it wasn't something that people did on a Sunday. Like they didn't just go and for a couple hours on a Sunday be a Christian community. This was a 24/7, 365 days of the year event.
Right.
That was a way of life. It wasn't, it wasn't religion. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It
Right.
wasn't orthodox, ceremonies and
You weren't
ritual and
right. You weren't just all reading out of a book. You were actually doing the action, the serving.
right.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it wasn't,
Yeah.
3 songs, collect an offering and listen to somebody talk for 30 minutes.
Right.
It
It was
was
actually
it was
people doing it.
Christianity being lived out daily, working out conflicts that
Wow.
were happening at the time, dealing with their past, trying
Right.
to heal from the war. I mean, it was absolutely astounding.
Uh-huh.
And it kept growing and getting more influential. And I was so naive at the time.
Right.
And I did not understand that success is a threat.
Oh.
And
Ah.
so
Right. Right.
I am
Success and
so
that,
excited about
right.
what
And
God's
peace.
doing.
Yeah.
I'm so excited at the impact this is having in the whole southern part of the country.
Right.
I'm so excited about all the good things. I'm completely naive to the politics and the insidious nature of evil at the time. And so where this story goes south is that at Thanksgiving dinner at my mother-in-law's house in 1987, right as I had sat down with a plate of food, I got a phone call from a friend of mine, a South African friend of mine, who basically told me I better sit down. I said, I already am. And he goes, well, I have some very gut-wrenching news for you. 16 of our friends have been killed at the Community of Reconciliation, and they burned it to the ground.
Oh.
Well, I was so shocked.
Oh, wow.
Like so utterly shocked. I remember sitting there and I was in a bubble and I could see everybody's mouths moving, but I couldn't hear anything. Like I was just in shock. So long story short, I ended up having to get on an airplane, fly over there, find out what had happened, which no one quite understood. And it's taken years of research and digging to find out what really went on. But basically, as I was explaining earlier, I didn't understand the dynamics of how influence is like a pie.
Right.
Right. And the bigger your piece is, the smaller other people's become. So the more influence that the Community of Reconciliation was having, the more of a threat it became to political leaders in the country who were extremely jealous of what was going on there and did not want a place of peace and reconciliation because at the time that this was happening, we were in the middle of a genocide.
Okay.
So that's another piece of this story, because the Shona
Okay.
people in the north had come down and were slaughtering the Matabele people. So I
Okay.
was helping build this place in the middle of a genocide, in the middle of an extended conflict after the war, because the two sides had sort of teamed up. These two sides of the country had teamed up to overthrow the British white government.
Okay.
And
That's what I
after
was
the
wondering
war,
with.
went at each other over the
Oh
spoils.
no.
And the
Okay.
tribe that was in the south was the smaller of the two.
Right.
So, anyways, here I am, and I just, it was gut wrenching. See, I don't even, it's hard to
So
talk about it
sorry.
because it
Yeah.
was so I was so confused. I came back, in December before Christmas, to
Mhm.
be with my family, and I was still in shock. And then
So was it over land? Was
it
it
was over
over
influence.
it was just over influence, not
Right. The
land.
political leaders
Right.
were threatened by the fact that this was working. That they
Ah.
wanted, see, they were thriving because of conflict. They didn't want
Oh.
peace.
Oh, okay. Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
I mean, it's hard to understand that, because
Does
it's like,
it
don't
seem
we
like
all want
that's
peace?
going
No,
on
not
kinda
everybody wants peace.
do you think that it's going on right now in our country?
Yeah, but it's shocking though when you realize,
Mhm.
that people really don't want they and the reason
Yes.
I've figured this out over the years, but the darkness loves conflict,
Ab
right? And
absolutely.
it incites
It does.
it
Yes.
injects itself into it.
Yes.
I mean, it
The darkness.
inflames it.
Yeah, the
And
darkness
and
doesn't
I
want the
saw it
light.
up close
Yes.
and
Yeah.
personal. I mean, there's things that I can't
Yeah.
really, it's not for public consumption here,
Right.
but suffice it to say that I know I was in trouble when I got home. I was laying
Right.
on the floor in the front room of my house playing with my two beautiful little children, who I think were 1 and 3 at the time. And all of a sudden the slideshow goes off, and I'm back seeing all these gory images,
Oh, so
like
you
I'm
got
reliving it, right? And so at
yeah.
the time, I
Oh,
didn't
that's
understand
terrible.
anything about trauma.
I'm
Again,
sorry.
I'm 20, at that time I was
Right.
30. Nobody had ever explained anything to me.
The PTSD of it.
Oh, I
Yes.
didn't know. I didn't even
Right.
know that term. I didn't know
Right.
anything. And unfortunately, neither did anyone else. And so you get back to church, and because I was such a central figure at this church, everybody was, okay, Bob, we need this. Like I never got time to grieve. I just literally had to get back, roll up my sleeves, and meet people's needs. And people will come by and go, oh, sorry, man.
Oh.
Right.
Oh,
And you're
and you're
stuck
like
with
you
this gaping
right.
wound, and you don't know what to do with it, because
Yeah.
there wasn't any, I didn't get any help. Right. So I did what all men do, when they come up against things they can't deal with or don't
Yes.
understand, which is compartmentalize it.
Compartmentalize.
We find a room in our soul,
Yep.
we stuff it in there, we
Yep.
close the door, lock it, throw the
Yep.
key away, and just go, okay,
Yes.
I can't deal with this. I don't know how to deal with this. I'm not gonna deal with this. And you think that by
Right.
compartmentalizing it,
That
you're solving the
you're
problem.
controlling it.
Yeah.
Well, you think you're controlling it.
Yeah.
Yes. And I know I'm one of those. So
Yeah. So
I
I
totally
thought
understand that.
I
Mhm.
was, I had a solution.
Yeah. That's no, because it
And
comes out later, right?
well, it
Jumps out.
actually, as I've learned, it actually was, it was seeping into everything, and I just didn't know it, because
Right.
I didn't understand it. So it was 20 years later. It was actually like 2000. Was it 2000? No, it was 2007.
Mhm.
2007, my wife said to me, who didn't, I had remarried. The
Uh-huh.
whole thing it messed up my first marriage. My second marriage, my wife says to me, I don't know what's bothering you, but you need
Mhm.
to go talk to somebody. I'd never told her what happened.
Oh,
No.
you never told her.
I never
What?
talked about it. I didn't talk to a single soul about it for 20 years.
Oh my. So there was nobody
When I
else
say I
over
put it in the
here?
room and locked it up, I mean, I
Wow.
literally put it in a room and locked the door.
Oh wow.
No, I
Yeah.
never told a soul about it. And here, you know why?
Why?
Because a couple years after it happened, I was out in California. We relocated out to California.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody asked me to get up and share my story so the people there could know a little bit about me.
Right.
And I started giving a little autobiographical overview. And one of the things that I mentioned was that I had lost 16 friends to a massacre in Zimbabwe. And somebody from the back of the room, now I'm in a church meeting. Get this, this is a church meeting. Somebody yells out from the back of the room, "Bummer, man, we don't want to hear about people dying."
What?
Yeah. And
Oh
it
my
was
goodness.
like somebody just shot an arrow through my heart. It was like, this was the most painful thing I'd ever been through. These were the most precious people I'd ever been around. And for somebody to say that so shocked me that I never talked about it again. I was so afraid that my
Right.
story would offend people or make them uncomfortable or
Yeah.
whatever. So I just didn't talk about it.
Yeah. That's why, I
And
mean,
so
that was
anyways,
very
I go
dismissive.
and
Oh,
see a shrink,
right.
get some help from people
Right.
like us now.
Right.
But at that time, I wasn't really in that vein. So anyways, it's the very first session. He's asking me for an autobiographical sketch of my life. I try to fast forward this experience by, as I'm going through my life, going, yeah, and I had some friends killed in Africa, and then I moved right past it, right?
Right.
And he goes, "Excuse me."
Yeah. He
I
said,
said,
back
"Oh,
up.
did you not understand what I said?" He goes, "Yeah, reverse that a little bit." I go, "How far
Yeah.
back?" He goes, "You just said you had 16 friends killed in Africa." "Yeah, I did, but that was 20 years ago," and tried to move on. He goes, "Bob,
Right.
stop,
Right. Right.
stop." And I went, "Okay." He goes, "Tell me what happened."
Yeah. Oh,
And I said, no, I said to him, I said, "Hey, nobody wants to hear my story. You don't understand. Nobody wants to hear my story."
no.
Right. And
Yeah.
with the most sweetest, compassionate eyes, he looked me right in the face and go, "But I do." And I'm telling you, Sandy, it was the craziest thing. Those
Wow.
words just undid me. I
Wow.
literally just started sobbing.
I bet.
I mean,
Oh,
I broke down, and I mean, it wasn't like I even made a choice. It just happened. Like that I had stuffed this thing away for so long that when his words were like a key. They just unlocked the door. You know what I mean? It was
right.
like his kind, empathetic, compassionate, caring words unlocked my door.
Wow.
I didn't unlock it. He did.
Right. He allowed you to,
And,
right.
no, I just came tumbling out. When he opened the door, I just came
Wow.
tumbling out. So the long and the short of it is that he told me to go home and write the story. And I
Okay.
said, "Why is that?" And he said, he goes, "Normally in these situations, we don't give out diagnoses until after a few sessions." But he goes, "I already know where this is going. And so I'm going to just be really straightforward with you. You have what's called post-traumatic shock disorder." And I was like, "Huh?" He goes, "Like what soldiers have. They come back from war." And I went,
Yeah.
"Me?" And he goes, "Yeah, you."
Yeah.
And he explained it to me. And then, of course, my question, typical man, well, how do I get rid of it? You know, what pill can I take? Right.
Right.
What
You
antibiotic
can't.
is there out there
Yeah.
for this?
PTSD
And
is,
he said to
yeah.
me, he goes, "Well, there's no cure for it. You will always have that experience. You can't get rid of it." He goes, "But what you have to do is tell your story. That's the only way you're going to heal."
Right.
And I
Right.
argued with him. I go, you don't understand. And he goes, that's why I want you to write it down. So anyways, I went home that night and I stayed up all night long.
Oh,
I just
wow.
wrote, and I sobbed all the way through it. I mean, it took me all night just because I couldn't, it was just so hard to get through it all. So I brought it back and we spent the next year kind of working through a lot of stuff. And out of that came the book called Saving Zimbabwe: Life, Hope, Death in Africa. And it tells the whole story,
Yes.
how I got
just put
there,
the
what
link
happened,
in
so
our
if you want the
comments.
long version, I'll get you the book.
Yeah.
But
The
that's
link is in the comments. I just posted
okay,
the
cool.
link to it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the thing started. Then what happens is that a few years later, Dr. B, who's been on our show and
Yes.
who
We need to have him back on. Yes.
yeah, calls me one day from Arkansas, or actually, where was he? Oh, he was in Joplin, Missouri, actually, at the time, and said to me, hey, you're not going to believe this, but my mother is dying. I went back to Zimbabwe and there's no medical supplies. I can't even get her a catheter.
Oh.
Can you help me? I need, right? So I was like, never really thought about that, but I like to solve problems. So let's see what I can do. Well, I ended up discovering that hospitals and health facilities throw out hundreds of millions of dollars of medical supplies because they've passed their use by date. But we're talking about gauze that's never been out of a package, catheters that have never been out.
Right.
Like I don't know how they decide when something's expired, but it's perfectly good, right?
Right.
So I started making phone calls and I started collecting stuff.
Oh, that's great.
Right. And pretty soon I ran out of space. And so a friend of mine, John Shore, who owns Shore Tire, helped me get some warehouse space down on 31st Street in an underground cave. We just started collecting stuff. Right. Well, then I was like, well, obviously something's happening here. So I need to put some organization to it. And so I asked myself a question. In order to find a name for the organization, what are the things that are of high value to you? Like when you look back at your life, what things mean a lot to you? I said, well, the issue of justice, biblical justice, restorative justice is a huge thing for me, and compassion, because it's kind of in every corpuscle of my being is this compassionate side of me. So I put the two things together and created Compassionate Justice, right?
Nice.
Then I had this thought like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to get a name like that because I'm sure it's everywhere. Like if somebody's already got this is 2008, I think. So I go online and Google Compassionate Justice, and I can't find the two words anywhere. And I'm mystified. Then I registered, I had my accountant register with the state of Missouri, and nobody had the name, right? And so I get everything started, and then I post it, that I've got this name, Compassionate Justice, and I suddenly start getting emails and texts from people going, huh? Right? And I was so mystified, but I didn't realize how many people saw justice as vindictive, like getting justice. You wronged me in order to.
So they were taking it negatively.
Right. They were there. I didn't find anyone who had a concept of biblical justice like Jesus did, which was restorative.
Right.
Right. It was all civil.
Right.
And retribution. That was how people saw justice, right?
Oh, wow.
And so I was really shocked by this. And it wasn't just like one, it was like from all over the world, people were calling me going, those two words don't go together. So I had to then write a piece, and I put some of it on my Compassionate Justice website, explaining what restorative biblical justice looked like.
Right.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, I was so naive. I would have thought that was just like everybody got it. And how did anybody even understood the concept? So that's how Compassionate Justice International got started. And
Okay,
we ship
great.
medical supplies by the container loads full. It just kept
That's great.
escalating. I kept getting more stuff and more stuff. And
Do you
lots of thanks to
still
Zimbabwe.
collect it? Is if anybody's
No, I
watching?
haven't in a
No.
while because I don't, I'm all by myself right now.
Oh, okay.
And I don't have the warehouse and I'm not, I just can't, it's just a lot. It's so much work.
Right.
So then, the Secretary of Agriculture, or what they call the Minister of Agriculture, not agriculture, sorry, Education in
Mhm.
Zimbabwe, who had since become a good friend of mine, asked me if I could do the same thing with school books. Could I get school books to Zimbabwe? Because they had no money for school books. And I was absolutely baffled by that question. I was like, I don't know. But it was the same thing like the medical supplies. Let me at it. I'll dig and find out, right?
Right.
So I started, this is an interesting story. I started calling around to all the school districts in Kansas City. No one would talk to me.
What?
No one would talk to me.
That's why.
It was really odd.
That is odd.
Like no one would want to help me, right? Well, then one night at about 11:30, I get this phone call from a number I didn't recognize, and a woman basically asking, "Is this Bob Scott?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "I know you came in today to our offices asking about donating school books." And she goes, "I'm not going to tell you my name. I don't even want you to talk to me again. I'm going to give you a name and a phone number. Call this person and they'll explain."
Well, that's bizarre.
So, like mysterious, right?
11:30 at night,
so
even.
name
Ooh.
and phone number down.
That's neat.
The next day, I called this guy and he goes, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in Kansas City." He goes, "Well, I'm an hour from you. Can you come out and see me? And I'll explain what's going on." And I went, "Okay." So anyways, I drive out to this rural area and to a farm, which has got these big metal buildings on it. And the guy comes out and greets me and he takes me in to this building. And instead of there being cows and horses in there, it was floor to ceiling stacked with textbooks.
What?
I was like, huh?
Yeah.
Anyways, what he explained to me was, he goes, "The reason nobody wants to talk to you is because of the waste that goes on through these school boards and education system." He goes, "You see these books?" He goes, "They're a minimum of about $75 a piece."
Oh, yeah.
And he said, and these schools turn these books over every 3 years by subject. He goes, sometimes 5. But he goes, like Blue Valley and all these places, he goes, it's every 3 years they're buying a whole new curriculum for their right.
And
he
they
goes,
update the textbooks.
He goes, "You're talking about millions of dollars."
Holy cow.
And he said, and here's what's even more bizarre about it. He goes, I refer, give them bring in the newer versions. I have to take all the old stuff out. And he said, but it's in my contract that I'm not allowed to take it to the junkyard. I have to take it down to Oklahoma City in a big truck, and it has to be ground up for kitty litter or something. Like it's a recycling place. And he goes, it costs me hundreds of thousands of dollars to have to hire high school kids to go in there, grab all these books, load these trucks, and drive them down to Oklahoma City. He goes, if I could just he goes, I will bring you these books.
Wow.
Because I will drive to your cave and unload them for you. And I said, why are you so excited about this? He goes, because by donating them to you, I can take a 50% tax deduction on the value of the book. So he goes, for every $70 book I sold, I could take a $35, right? Anyways, it was crazy. So he was over the moon excited to give me books. So I'm now sending school books over, right? And another funny twist here is that when one of the containers arrived in Bulawayo, there was a whole group of Atlanta school teachers that had gone over there for the summer to do some missions work in
Uh-huh.
the schools, right?
Uh-huh.
And they were there with us. I'd given the books out to a whole bunch of different organizations, so they were there to pick up their share of the books for the organization they were working with over there. And the lady said to me, he goes, "You're not gonna believe this." She goes, "But when they started pulling the books out, the teachers from Atlanta started screaming, going, 'Oh my God, this is the curriculum we're using right now.'" He goes, this is not like 50-year-old school books. This
Oh
is
my
like
goodness.
stuff we're teaching in the inner cities of Atlanta right now."
Oh my
And so they were
goodness.
blown away. And some of the books that he had given me were like never been opened before, right?
Holy
Because
cow.
you know what I
'Cause
mean?
right,
They
they
have,
never were signed out, right? There weren't
yeah,
enough students.
they didn't need them. And so he had, cases full of brand new books that I got.
So let
I
me
was like
ask
a
you,
hero
how
in
did you
Zimbabwe.
afford the containers of sending them?
Well, that's where I couldn't
The
afford any of it. I
right,
needed
the
to do it all on
donations.
donations and people's
Okay.
kindness. So
Right.
what I would do would actually buy the container. I would buy, like, a lot of the containers. They're still, again, they're good, but they're a little beat up, right? And so they
Mhm.
take them out of commission. But initially I was buying them for $1,500, and then they went up to $4,000. But I would buy the container and then
Okay.
have the whole container dropped off, because, believe it or not, that container could be turned into a classroom
Oh,
or a storage facility
oh, how
or an
neat.
office, right? So I
Yeah.
used every bit of it to, to
That
help
is
people.
that is awesome. Okay, question about the textbooks and being in English. How is
Well, again,
everybody taught
remember,
English in Zimbabwe?
okay,
I don't know
so,
that. So,
right. So Zimbabwe, which was Rhodesia, was a British colony.
oh, it was a British
So
colony. So they
all
were
of the
already speaking
school kids
English.
there are
Right.
bilingual.
Ah, they were bilingual.
English is the everyday business social interaction language that people use, and then they only revert to their tribal dialects when it's family or close friends.
Oh, okay.
So that they're all bilingual.
Okay. See, didn't know
So
that.
what was cute is one of the ladies said to me, he goes, this is what Americans probably don't understand. He said, for these little African children who basically sit on the floor, and the only thing they have is a chalkboard and a teacher with chalk. They have no books, right? That's how
Right.
they learn everything that way. A child that would get one of these books would take it home, and they would put that under their pillow and sleep on it, because it would be their most precious possession.
Oh,
And I was just thinking about
wow.
that in contrast
Oh, that's
to
so like,
American parents
oh,
who can't get their kids not only
no
to bring the
kidding.
books home, even nobody wants to even read them, right?
Oh
But
my
for these little
goodness.
African kids, a textbook,
That
right,
is
would make
crazy.
them learn something and see, was the most
Yes.
precious thing. Oh, they
Yes.
loved it. The kids just loved the
Yes.
books. Well, then on the next shipment, he gave me books, but then he had all kinds of huge crates full of teaching aids, like flip charts. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like
Right.
ABC, teaching little first graders their ABCs with flip charts and
Oh,
animals.
neat.
And so I was able to ship over all these teaching aids, which, of course, when I got over there, all the teachers are hugging me, going, "Oh my God, this is just unbelievable!"
Right.
We just haven't seen something like this in decades. So
Wow. Now, when was that? I mean, are they
I,
still
I,
using
I
them or?
no, I'm not doing any of the medical supplies and books right now, simply because it's labor intensive.
Right. Okay.
And so what we're doing right now, what's been going on, so basically what ended up happening is I'd gone back over there, and then for about 5 years I didn't go back to Zimbabwe. We sort of ran its course. I thought that we had done what we were supposed to. We did the medical supplies and the books,
Right. Right.
and we relocated out of state, and so I just put everything on the shelf. Well, then in 2017,
Mhm.
I was working on my second book. I was actually down at the Lake of the Ozarks at a cabin writing the book, and I get a phone call from a friend who said, you need to go back to Zimbabwe. And I laughed and went, I haven't thought about Zimbabwe in a number of years. And besides that, I haven't talked to anybody there in 5 years.
Oh,
So I mean, I said, this is kind of comical. Like, why do you think I should go back to Zimbabwe?
uh-huh.
And they're like, I just got a feeling. And I said, oh, I have no plans to go back to Zimbabwe. And then their question was, well, what would it take for you to go?
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's a funny question. I suppose, and I just flippantly said, I suppose an invitation, like somebody would think it would be important for me to come there, but that's not going to happen. I haven't talked to anybody in 5 years. Right.
Right.
So anyways, stayed up late, went to bed, got up the next morning, fired up my computer, my laptop. And there in my inbox is an email from a guy named Brian Oldreive, who runs an organization in Zimbabwe called Foundations for Farming, who basically says, hey, I know it's been a long time since we've talked, like years, but we feel very strongly that you need to come and speak about peace and reconciliation at our conference this year. I mean, Sandy, I was like, huh?
You're like, did you talk to that guy that I talked to? Yeah.
Looking at this going, this is like a trick.
Right.
Like less than 24 hours earlier, I had made the comment.
Right. I won't go
if I get an invitation.
Right.
An invitation, right?
Well, yeah.
I was cornered then. Like I was like,
well,
oh yeah, God, I have to go.
Right. Right. You said it. You put it out there.
Anyways, I went back in March of what was it, 2018. And that's a whole nother show we could go on. But the most astounding things happen. What I didn't know was a little secret. The president, and part of the reason I didn't go back to Zimbabwe was that my book got snuck into the country.
Oh, no.
Copies of it. And the president of Zimbabwe got a hold of it and basically banned me and said, if you ever show up in Zimbabwe, we're going to arrest you. So that was part of the reason why I didn't go back.
Wow.
Right? Because they were really threatened by the book.
Right.
Well, I got kind of pissed off at him. Like, really? So what I did was, and when you loaded these containers with school books, it's 2 pallets high, right? And there, you could get 24 in. Well, what I did is I put 2 pallets of Saving Zimbabwe in the container first, and then packed 22 pallets of books. I mean, you talk about, this thing is 40 feet long, right? 8 foot high, 8 foot wide.
Wow.
This thing weighed tons.
Right.
I knew that when it got to customs in Zimbabwe, that there was no way those guys were going to pull out all of those containers with a forklift, right? I knew they checked the 2 or 4 at the end, but never the whole thing, right?
Right.
Anyways, Brian and his friend showed up in the middle of the night, and as they were unloading the container, took the books, and then they buried them. They handed them out to a few key people in the country, and then they buried them. And what I didn't know was that for those 5 years, that book had gone all over Zimbabwe, despite the president's threats against me. The reason I went back was he had died and there was a new president. That's why the door opened.
Right.
When I got over there, I found out that this book, like, had really touched people. Like, I had like hundreds of people coming up to me going, this book changed my life.
Oh, wow.
And I'm standing there with tears running down my face, thinking that I'd been reduced to irrelevancy. You know, and it's like I was arguing with Brian as to why I should even come back, right?
Right.
And a whole series of incredible events happen surrounding I give a speech, and it just boom, boom, and which is another whole show. But it was the craziest thing. So the next thing I know, I'm in the middle of the whole peace and reconciliation initiative in Zimbabwe. I've got leaders of the country who are asking me to come meet with them. And it was just crazy. Absolutely crazy. And so we started another organization over there called the National Center for Peace. So
Wow.
Compassionate Justice sister organization in Zimbabwe is called the National Center for Peace. And so that's what we've been working on. And even though it's been 30 years since the genocide, there is a whole, I would say a third of the country is still traumatized because
Right.
this genocide that happened, these women by the tens of thousands were raped.
Oh my gosh.
These women had their husbands taken out of their homes and shot
Oh my gosh.
or macheted. So, I mean, we're talking about gruesome events
Yes.
that have traumatized people. So anyways, I'll
Right.
tell you the whole story of what happened when I went back at another time. But
Right.
that's been the journey.
So I put in the comments the links to your website and how they can donate. Now, when they donate, what does it go to? Like, what is it?
I have a
help?
wife over there right now who's still keeping things going despite all of the conflict. But you know, the COVID thing and
Right.
what's going on. But 60%.
So can you tell us a little bit about the wife? You kind of skated over that.
Well, no, it's just my wife is a Black Zimbabwean woman, and her name's Abby. She's very sweet, and she's stuck over there. We are. She cannot get the U.S. government will not grant her a visa to come here. I can't go there because the government there shut down the borders.
Right.
I don't even really want to go there because the medical facilities are so bad that if I got sick, it's pretty much over. You know what I mean? So we're just stuck. We've been stuck on the opposite side of the pond since March, actually February.
Oh, wow.
At home.
I'm so sorry.
So anyway,
yeah.
She's still very involved. Nearly 60 to 70% of the population is food insecure. I mean, we're, you know,
so you're getting food for that for people.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking, you know, we're talking about, I mean, you know, there's still thousands of women that die in childbirth there. In fact, one of Abby's dearest friends was having her third child and died from complications, leaving 3 young children. Wow. So it's, you know, as bad as things are here, they don't hold water to what it's like there. And COVID's just hitting there now really bad. I mean, their hospitals are overwhelmed. You know, they're just, it's a really difficult situation. And so now the difference there is it's summertime there, so people can get out. But with this new strain that's come from UK, and now it got to South Africa, and now there's tens of thousands of people sleeping at the Zim Zim South Africa border because they won't let them into South Africa or back into Zimbabwe, so they're stuck sleeping outside on the ground.
Wow. Michael was telling a bit about knowing what happened to you. So
yeah,
you went anyway.
Yeah, well, that, you know, Michael's referring to when I went back and well, I left in February of 2018, the very last few days. But yeah, what they call the CIO, which is like FBI, like it's the internal police, were at my speech that I gave. So again, that's a whole nother story. But I was forbidden to talk about the community. That they wanted me not to talk. I could talk about the community. I couldn't talk about the massacre. So what I didn't know, though, at the time was I when I gave my speech, I talked around it. But what I didn't know is that at least half the people in the crowd had read the book.
Right.
So they knew exactly what I was talking about. But I ended up going to some various meetings where I didn't know when I walked in the door if I was going to be greeted by the secret police
Right. Or by
You
your
know what I mean?
friends.
Or
Right.
this was a real, I mean, it was a
That's
really
scary.
nerve-wracking situation.
Well,
God
you
was with
faced it.
me.
You went through it. That is so neat that you did
Yeah,
that. So, um, wow. Well, thank you for sharing that story. I just wondered, and I know the wife and everything is a whole nother story too. And
right.
hopefully we can hear that whole story, the love story part, because us women love that. So we want to hear that.
Yeah. Well, it's tough though. I mean, it's straight, just honestly being this far away and
Yeah.
people are, financial resources are very limited at the moment, and it's put a lot of pressure on us. It's
Well,
not an easy
that's why
situation.
I wanna, please, if you guys can donate anything to the nonprofit that I put in the chat, in the comments, and I just want you to know it's, I'm the one that kinda have pushed Bob to talk about this tonight, and it's really, I just really feel a heart and I wanna help, them as well. So, if you have a heart for people that really need your help right now, they need your help right now. So if you would donate, um, you know, thank you. And I know it would be appreciated.
Mhm.
So, I'm just
Appreciate it.
really, I mean, you were telling me, what Bob was telling me prior to us talking about it is that all of the people over there, they make their money by vendors. They're vendors, right? They make something or,
They
they
call it
sell
the
something.
informal economy.
Yeah, they do. They do. I don't know if you've ever went to, say, the Caribbean, and when you go to the Caribbean, everybody's got their little booths that they sell their wares. They've sewed something, they've painted something. And it's like that in Mexico as well. So wherever you've ever stopped, that's kind of how the whole country is, right,
Yeah.
Bob? Like that's what people do. They just sell their wares to each other. Kind of like I'm sure that's what we used
Well,
to
only
do in America.
10% of the people in the country are formally employed. Like they actually get a paycheck and, from a company. 90%
Right.
of everyone else either lives off the land farming or hustles, selling
Right.
something. A lot of them will bring in tomatoes from from the rural areas, or, sell produce, or they'll
Right.
try to buy and resell soda, or even, I mean, I've been to whole markets that are just used clothes.
Wow.
So,
But see, I mean,
you'll
this is
ship
where,
clothes over, and then they end up washing them and reselling them.
yeah. I mean, I always feel better when there's a trusted source that I'm sending my money to. Then I know that the donation is getting primarily sent to that instead of marketing in a big conglomerate. I'm more apt to donate to a smaller nonprofit than the big ones. So if you guys have a heart for it, please donate. This is kind of a time that it's much needed, because I know even back in May when when you first joined the show, they were already seeing the effects of COVID, and I'm sure by now it's way worse there. So
Well, it seems for some reason within the last week to have escalated. It's like taking a quantum leap. I mean, they were
Mhm.
kind of wondering why, has this thing not hit Africa? It hit
Right,
Brazil really bad. It hit India pretty bad. And especially in Africa where people live on top of each other, why has Africa been spared? I mean, they probably had, a few dozen people
uh-huh.
died. And then this week, I think it was yesterday, they had 36 people die
Oh,
in one
wow.
day. That's like more people than have died the whole
The whole
previous
time.
3 months.
Yeah.
And their hospitals are overwhelmed. So it's just this
Mhm.
week, things,
Oh, wow.
so I saw a really sad thing on Facebook where, it's interesting because there are people there because of their connection to power and these minerals that are very, very wealthy. But these wealthy people were on Facebook pleading, to can somebody get us a ventilator? Can we
Wow.
find a
Oh,
hospital bed for my relative?
that's so
It's like
sad.
with all their
Yeah.
money, they can't even access.
Right.
You know,
Right.
there's just no space.
Well,
There's
I'm uh
yeah, it's a
I
tough
really
situation.
enjoy,
Well, today the nurses at one of the big hospitals in Harare all walked out because the government isn't providing them with PPE,
Oh,
equipment.
no.
And one of the
Okay.
head nurses got sick on Sunday and was dead today.
Oh, geez.
So all the nurses walked
no.
out going, we're not doing this.
Right. Well, again, if you guys have a heart to donate to Zimbabwe, please, follow the links that I provided in our comments. So, Bob, thank you for telling your story. I really have wanted you to tell it for quite a while. It took us till January to tell it, but I'm sure we want to talk about it again. And there's I know there's more stories to it. I know you've got lots of stories to it, and how God, how God shows up too. How does He show up in those places and people's faith and hope there and here. So I hope you guys, we didn't talk anything about yesterday, or today, but I'm just praying for you all that you stay safe and you keep steady, you keep your peace, you keep your calm, be the calm in the storm. So, God is our calm in our storm, and He's the one that can sustain us and keep us steady and grounded, not any other outside influences. So I hope that gives you hope, and my prayers are with you all. And Bob, my prayers are with you and your wife and that whole team that you have over there. And we're already at the end of the show. That was fast. Always goes so fast.
For me, I just so you know, it means a lot when people want to hear the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard sometimes to talk about it, but on the converse side of that, the fact that people care means a lot to me. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. And anybody that watches this, please hit hashtag replay when you watch this on the replay on YouTube or on Facebook. And I appreciate all of you guys joining us. Nora, Michael, Larry, thank you so much. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. You ever need anything, let me know. And we'll see you back on Monday.
All right.
So 8:45. And thank you, Bob. And you have a wonderful evening. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Candy.
Bye.
Thank
Peace
you
out.
all for tuning in.
God bless you all.
Join us Monday mornings at 8:45 a.m.
and Thursdays, 6:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time. See you then.